The Plainville Board of Education, preparing students for success in a changing global society.
I'd like to welcome all the parents, guardians, and well-wishers to the second big celebration so far that I know of, maybe there's some that I don't know about, of our boys soccer team. I am incredibly proud of our team, who under the leadership of Coach Tim Brown, JV Coach Devin Puglisi, and volunteer assistant Bruce Billowin, finished the season with an overall record of 13-7-1 with a division record of 7-1. They were crowned the CCC South Patriot Division champions, as well as the Class M Boys Soccer State Championship on November 18th. En route to the championship, our team was ranked number 23. However, with talent and determination, they knocked off the number 2 seed Granby Memorial High School in the quarterfinals and the number 3 seed team Stonington High in the semifinals. Plainville beat the number 1 seed Ellington 1-0 in the state championship game. The game's winning goal was scored by Jamie Rauchi. Jamie, are you here? He's not? And let's see, I just lost my place because I was worried Jamie wasn't here. And he was assisted by Patrick Grzyzewski. I'm sorry if I mangled your name, Patrick G. And Patrick is here. No one wants to, no, oh my goodness. Jamie was later named the Male Athlete of the Week by the Hartford Courant for his game-winning goal. 14 of our varsity soccer players were named to the Central Connecticut Conference All-Academic Team, which means they earned a varsity letter and had above an 88 overall academic average. Not easy to do. We had 5 players named to the Central Connecticut All-Conference Team: Mike Torres, Sergio Zaldivar, Tyler Miller, Dane Stevens, and Patrick G. We had 2 individuals named to the Connecticut All-State Team: Mike Torres and Sergio Zaldivar. Dane Stevens was also named to the state championship game MVP. However, besides their talent on the field, these players have also successfully fundraised over $1,200 for pediatric cancer research by selling gold bracelets, and they also wore gold laces in their cleats for the Lace Up for Pediatric Cancer cause, Go for the Goal. Although I thought they were called boots, right? I was correct about that. The Plainville High School boys soccer team is the true definition of a team, as evidenced by their dedication, hard work, and relentless attitude. These talented young men were able to take the Plainville boys soccer program to new heights by capturing the first ever boys soccer state championship in Plainville High School history. That's amazing. Last but not least, whenever I speak to parents, teachers, coaches, or community members about the team, I consistently hear that they are a remarkable group of young men, both on and off the field. First and foremost, they are really good kids, and in addition to their clear talents on the soccer field. I've also had the opportunity to meet some of the players over these past few weeks and chat with them about their future plans, and I couldn't agree more with Coach Brown's statement. And this is what he said to me the day after the game when I congratulated him. He goes, "These kids are really special." That's exactly what he said. When my husband and I attended the state championship game on November 18th, we were blown away, and you guys have heard me say this before, but I'm saying it again, by their teamwork and highly coordinated plays. It's like watching a choreographed dance thing. They just fly the ball back and forth, but it goes where it's supposed to go. And I get teased because I don't know a lot about sports, but even I know that you guys are really good. So tonight is just, and wait, one more thing. It was evident from early on that our team was in command of the game, and it was only a matter of time before the winning and only goal of the game was scored by Plainville. Tonight is just the start of many celebrations in honor of this special team. A committee has been formed to design a formal celebration for this amazing team that is likely to be scheduled sometime in January. And I would like to thank the town council again for honoring this team on Monday evening of last week. Now, to show our pride and to honor the Class M boys soccer state champions, I would like to call everyone up individually for a certificate, and this time we're going to get a really awesome team photo right in front of our banner over there. But before that, I would like to bring up our three coaches, Tim Brown, Devin Puglisi, and Bruce Billowin. I have a plaque honoring the entire team that I would like them to carry. Come on up. Cool. So we've got a good picture of that in a moment. Inspire, prepare, engage, wall. Absolutely. Look forward to more celebrations. Thank you. And I'm joined beside me by our vice chair, Nicole Palmieri. Our board chair is unable to attend this evening due to a family emergency. Now I'd like to call up our players. Come right up when I call your name, and Ms. Palmieri will give you your certificate, unless our alphabetical order thing got messed up. Gavin Bravado. Not here? All right, we'll get him his certificate. Landon Cody. There he is. Congratulations. It's right there. Joshua Elliott. Kyan Jones. Not here either? Jesse Pyers. Oh, is there another game going on tonight? Brennan Staubley. Jaden Barton. Patrick Grzyzewski, better known as Patrick G. Grzyzewski. Let's see, Nathan Masco. Aiden Payne. Tanner Rao. Tucker Rao. Corey Rexinger McConnell. Andrew Zamula. Luis Fernando Arango. Dalton Barker. Brady Bousselet. Nathan Sear. Reno Lausier. Logan Miller. Joseph Page. Jacob Pierce. Jared Serrano Aviles. Matthew, oh boy, Stankewitz. Matthew S. Jens Wadden. Timothy McCrory. Tyler Miller. James Rocci. Alrighty. Zachary Santini. Brendan Savron. John Ciani. Dane Stevens. Michael Torres. And last but not least, Sergio Zaldivar. All right, we're gonna gather in front of the banner here. I'll have Ms. Davis help me with. And Chris and there we go. All right, coaches, you gotta get the picture too. All right. How's that, Miss Davis? Are we? Yep, we put a little bit tighter on the end. Yep, tighter on the end. Typically, that nice and straight. Eyes over here. Okay, good. We'll give time for the paparazzi.
Good evening. We are going to start the meeting, 7:01. Can I please have Mrs. Consalvo lead us in the pledge?
I pledge
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of our November 12th meeting?
I'd like
Madam
to,
Chair, okay.
sorry. I'll make a motion to request the approval of minutes for November 12th, 2018.
Can I get a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Okay. Can I get a motion to request the approval of minutes for the special meeting of the Finance Subcommittee?
Madam Chairman, I request approval of the minutes of the special meeting November 12th, 2018 of the Finance Subcommittee.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay. Can I get a motion to request the approval of minutes for the November 12th Facility Subcommittee?
Madam Chairman, I request we approve the minutes of the special meeting of November 12th, 2018 of the Facilities Subcommittee.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, and lastly, request to approve the minutes of the special meeting of November 19th.
Madam Chairman, I request approval of minutes of the special meeting of November 19th, 2016 of the Board of Education.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Okay. Now we're going to do our citizens' comments. Is there anyone that would like to come up? You can speak at the podium and just give us your name and your address. No one. You sure? Okay. Now I'm going to call up Mrs. Puglisi to do the council liaison report.
Good evening, everybody. Kathy Puglisi, 50 West Broad Street. I have a relatively brief report for you tonight. We had a meeting mid-November, and just a quick review. We had a work session with Kevin Ross to discuss with the town council about doing a fiber optic build-out in the town. The reason we did this is the town of Plainville is undergoing a very large expansion to our water pollution control plant for a phosphorus removal upgrade. And there was a potential of our being able to connect the 8 pump stations that we have, which are located throughout the town, with fiber optic in order to implement some new technology at those pump stations. And having said that, we were going to try and utilize some of the contingency funding from the project, which was approved by the voters. Kevin did a very good job explaining the costs of the project and how you would go about implementing it. It would essentially not only connect our pump stations, but it would enable us to be able to also go off of that fiber and connect the town buildings along with some of the school buildings. So it's a rather efficient way to accomplish this project. The council did have some questions about using those contingency funds at this point in time, and the town manager is gathering some more information about our ability to do that. But to sum it up, everybody on the council certainly approves of having a fiber optic connection through all of our buildings in town. Whether we can utilize funding from the water pollution control plant project remains to be seen. So that's something we're going to be hearing about down the road, and we'll keep you informed as we move along with that. But it's a large project, it's an expensive project, and we just have to do it in the most efficient way possible with the funding that we will have available to us at some point in time. Also at our last meeting a week ago, Monday, we had a very special meeting, and the only agenda item was to recognize the 2018 Plainville boys soccer team and their Class M state championship. We were delighted to do that. They were all here this evening. I saw them again, and they are the most charming group of young men, I have to say. I met a number of them through our Pumpkin Fest. They volunteered to carve pumpkins and gut pumpkins, and they very cheerfully helped us out. And they each got a copy of the proclamation that we gave to them. However, we didn't have one for Athletic Director Farrell, so I did bring one here tonight. We had a miscount on some of our proclamations. That could happen. So I do have one for Coach Farrell, or Athletic Director Farrell, I should say. So with your permission, I'd like to hand it over, and you could give it to him, and he can keep it in his office, because it's certainly a very proud moment for Plainville, for the high school, and the boys soccer team did an outstanding job, and we couldn't be more pleased to recognize them in that way. So I'll leave this with you, and that concludes my report. I'd like to wish you all a happy holiday, Merry Christmas. I hope you have a healthy New Year, and I would answer any questions if you have any for me.
Any questions?
Okay, thanks so much, and I'll turn this over to Superintendent.
Thank you very much.
Drummett.
And thank you very much, Chairwoman Puglisi. The ceremony last Monday evening was fantastic. We had a wonderful turnout, as we did tonight, and I know the students, or the soccer champs, were extraordinarily appreciative of the recognition, and it was nice to be able to do a similar celebration this evening with more to come, but I want to thank the town council again for their, honoring our team very, very nicely.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to the podium. I just wanted to let the board know I'm going to go in a little bit different order tonight. I'm going to start with the thought exchange update. Good evening. I am very pleased to discuss with the Board of Education this evening the results of our thought exchange survey process, which was done in October. And after several months of looking at the results and with Lynn Davis's support and help diving in and getting the themes, tonight we'll be presenting to you the very positive results. On the next slide is kind of an overview of what our participation rate was, and it was very good, not quite as high as last time, but over 598 people participated, and I'll show you the breakdown of who they were momentarily. We had 497 thoughts shared, and from those 497 thoughts, almost 7,600 stars were assigned. And just to remind the board of what that looks like is after a thought is shared, and many of you probably participated in this, then anyone who saw the survey could say, I like that too, and put a star by it. And the more stars a thought gets, the more prominent that theme was. And tonight, you'll see the themes that came out as front and center within the survey. And again, there's no questions here. It's all sharing thoughts. It's not a Likert scale or any of those surveys. I agree, I disagree. It's strictly what a citizen will say and what other people think about what they say. So we had one overriding question for this survey process. What do you think our schools are doing well, and what can we focus on in order to improve? From that question, we had the following participation percentages on the next slide. About 47% of the respondents were parents and guardians, or 257. About 115 students responded. About 157 staff members responded, or 29%. 13 community members, that would be Board of Ed or Town Council or other local folks that we sent it to. Some of our business partners received the survey, and about 8 people who are, typically those are district-wide employees who don't identify with any one school, so they typically call themselves other. So that's the summary of who participated. I'm really excited to show some of the very top positive thoughts that were gleaned from the survey. Resoundingly, folks who responded said that we have a caring, dedicated, and passionate staff, that the school district and teacher communication is excellent. People are feeling very well informed. Many people made comments about how well the Wheeler project is going along and how well it's being handled at Wheeler. People are clear that safety is a huge priority for us. That comes through with people that understand what the district is doing. There are many comments about us preparing students for postgraduate life. Hopefully our students tonight agree with that. Technology is considered top-notch, and STEAM and STEM are very important to people. And folks feel that their children are getting a well-rounded and high-quality education. What really was powerful, though, was some of the quotes that we were able to glean from the survey. These are coming straight from respondents, be it a parent, be it a student, or a staff member. So they kind of came about in themes. So some of the positive quotes we got about staff are that people feel our environment is very positive, nurturing, enthusiastic, and it provides the setting for very effective teaching and learning. People say that we have a phenomenal staff. It makes dropping off my children feel good. Definitely what you want to hear from your parents. The way I see teachers incorporating technology experiences like Makerspace is key to building a generation of creative thinkers. I really like that comment because when I do the capital budget presentation momentarily, you'll see Makerspace as part of that budget. Under collaboration, we had a lot of theming come out about the collaboration and the professional learning communities that we have here in Plainville, and the board has allowed us to dedicate those Wednesday half days, and I'm glad to report back to the board that people see a real value in that. People feel that the professionalism and collegiality among our teachers is held in high regard, and that members of the school community work collaboratively to support student achievement. That's a direct result of that collaboration time. And additionally, besides PLCs, every school, every teacher has common planning time throughout the week. And most recently, that's happening here at the high school, which is a new addition about a year ago. But again, it's a highly valued component. And there are many other opportunities for collaboration, and people feel, probably teachers feel, that working as a team allows teachers to draw more support, learn from each other, be more effective, and share creative ideas. All the things that we really want to get out of those collaboration times. Lots of positive comments about technology, STEAM, and STEM. The concept of the STEAM lab at the MSP is cutting edge. Students can have integrated opportunities to discover and follow their passion. I thought that was awesome because that comes right out of our vision statement about their passion. I love that students have Chromebooks because they can have access to classwork, schedules, lessons, and teachers, not, all the time. And someone commented that I think our schools are doing well preparing our students for these 21st century world of work. We have invested in STEM and are constantly encouraging our kids to explore and refine their interests. And a lot of these sentiments will also bode well as we head into a project called our Vision of the Graduate, which I'll explain momentarily. Lots of positive quotes about students teaching and learning, again, right back to our vision statement, that many parents commented that Plainville schools are doing extremely well with identifying and meeting each individual student's learning style, strengths, and needs. So I think parents are seeing that we meet the needs of all learners, which is really good to hear. For a small district, we provide our students with a very well-rounded quality education. Plainville schools are doing extremely well at preparing students for adult careers or college. Again, our student liaisons may comment about that later. And I believe our school's doing well in preparing our kids for the future. So it was nice to see that parents are able to see, and probably some staff too, that we're looking toward the future and what we want our kids to be able to do upon graduation. So I think another component that we gleaned from the survey is, what are some things that we could do a little bit better? I mean, I think that was part of the process. We wanted to hear from folks about what we might need to spend a little more time on, or in some cases, I think it became an issue of what do we need to spend more time communicating about. So parents said, hey, we want to see what your curriculum looks like. We want to be able to look at it longitudinally. Well, it is on our website, so now we're going to purposely share the link to that website. Parents want more information about standards-based grading, and as the board knows, we just rolled that out at the middle school, and they just had their first report card, so I think that's also generating more questions. So I've asked Mr. LePage to work with Mr. Guarino about a follow-up presentation to the board, possibly in February when the middle school, State of the Middle School is done. I think that might be a logical time to do that. Continue our work on cultural sensitivity. Parents wanted to see that continue, and staff. And more emphasis on social emotional learning and training for staff to support students. Another thing that we are beginning to work on, but it was nice to see that it's a value among our stakeholders as well. So going forward, I mean, we definitely did this survey process with an eye on what are we going to do with the information. It's not just an exercise in collecting information. We want to actually use it. So what we're going to do next is begin what's called our Vision of the Graduate work. And as luck would have it, we had a meeting today with Mr. LePage, Mr. Johnson, and our two lead teachers from the NEAS process, Kaylin Guadarrama and Deb Peichel. And during that meeting, we discussed what kind of process we want to do to include all community members, faculty, staff, students. So we are going to start the process by going to every faculty meeting in the district and sharing with all teachers what we're trying to do, hopefully getting some of those teachers interested in helping us out. And then we're going to open it up to community members, board members, to kind of look at what do we want to see our kids have for their skill set upon graduation. And it's more than just the academic skills. We're going to get into critical thinking skills and creativity and innovation. So those are some of the things we'll work on. So that will be, you'll see some more updates on that in January. We're going to update and revise the strategic plan based on the Vision of the Graduate work, and the thought exchange results will also inform some of the updates to the strategic plan. We're going to update our rings document to align with all of the above, and we're going to do a revised posters. We give them out every year at convocation, so this year
We'll give a revised convocation poster out, which will show some of these changes that you've heard about tonight. We're going to send the curriculum links to families. Now that we've presented to the board, I'm going to probably send out a school messenger this week where parents will see a little report, a summary report of the thought exchange process. There's also a link on our website that they can look at to dive deeper into it. It's more than just a report. You can actually kind of click on and see some of the other themes that maybe I didn't comment about tonight. And then I'll send that out to parents so they have that information. And then the board is familiar with a concept called Ruler. It's a social emotional program that we're looking at. It's out of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, and we started some work on that this year. We sent a team to some advanced training, Linden actually, back in October. And at our March PD Day, we've actually been able to secure Dr. Mark Brackett. He is the head of the Social Emotional Center at Yale and an internationally known speaker. And because Plainville has already done some of the preliminary training, he's going to come here in March on our PD Day and speak to our staff about how this rolling out process would look, answer some questions about what's this all about. And I'm certainly opening that up to board members, town council members if they want to learn more about it, but he's a very talented speaker, and he'll be our keynote speaker that afternoon, and I'll certainly remind people as it gets closer. So that really is some of the outcomes from our thought exchange process. I really find this to be very valuable. In fact, today I was talking to Mr. Johnson, and he indicated that earlier this year they used thought exchange, which I knew about here at the high school, and they did it with the eye on vision of the graduate work. What do our staff members feel here at the high school specifically that our students need to know and be able to do upon graduation? So that'll also inform our work on the vision of the graduate, but this process is invaluable for getting that information in a much more open-ended way versus those standard survey questions about do you agree or disagree with this kind of thing. So it's been a very good process, it's been very informative, and we will use that information to talk about our strategic plan down the road and to update it. So with that being said, are there any questions from the board? Wow.
Just one thing, Maureen. So it's very interesting to see, obviously, the things that people say. It just looks to me, and I could be wrong, but it looks to me like most of the comments came from staff or somebody who kind of knows the process that we are in. So when you go online, can you kind of see a little bit more about what parents specifically said and that kind of thing?
And they make up about 50% of the respondents. So yes, if you want to get a better eyeball on what parents said specifically, go on our website. There's a section that you can click on, and you can actually play with it. You can click in to see which areas are of interest to you. And then the executive summary is also going to be sent out to parents so they can choose whether they want to read that report or kind of play with it themselves. Students can do that as well, kind of see what their fellow classmates might have said about it. So yes.
And just in general, I mean, I think it was 49% parents, 21% students. You had a good, representation across the board, I think, from.
Definitely, we felt good about the response rate. According to our discussions with Thought Exchange, even though it was a little bit lower than last time, they felt it was still a valid survey. And she even commented, we work with a gal named Gagan, I forget what her last name is. I guess I'm on a bad roll tonight with names anyway, so I won't even try. But, she said it was a very positive survey, given that she works with districts across the country. And typically when people are happy, you get a slightly lower response rate because, unfortunately, people tend to comment when they're not happy. And there were a few, you'll read through that. There were a few people that wanted more communication about certain things and more information. So certainly it wasn't 100% positive, but I think as a whole, it was extraordinarily positive.
Awesome.
So, all right, any other questions? All right, then I will shift into the board budget kickoff update. So tonight, I'll have Sam join me momentarily to go over a variety of items from our preliminary budget work, but tonight you'll hear about the capital plan. You'll hear about us, and Sam will go into some detail about why we're going to implement a soft freeze on our budget and what that means.
We'll also talk about an overview of the process that we've used to date, and then make sure that the board has all of the dates in their calendars for the upcoming budget meetings. So that is our report for this evening. First and foremost, let me give you a kind of a history on the next slide of where we've been with the capital plan for the past year. So at the top of the slide is where we started off last year. At that time, the proposal from facilities was $116,318, and technology was $224,900, for a total of $341,218. That was our proposal at the time, and the Board of Ed then further reduced those budgets on their January 3rd meeting. So facilities went to $28,535, and the technology budget remained intact. So that board-approved capital plan was $253,435. And then after the process with the town manager and the town council, we zeroed out facilities, and technology remained at $224,900. Now again, last year was a very tight year with ECS uncertainty and frankly cuts. So I'm certain that that's what led to a rather low capital plan. This year you'll see that we've tried to backfill a little bit, especially on the facilities side, because they went last year without any budget at all in terms of capital. So there's been some work done already. We've been working on the capital plan for several months. When I spoke with both Mr. Bussell and Mr. Ross about their respective capital budgets, facilities came in at $436,500. And after some work and some discussions with Mr. Bussell, we've made some adjustments. So tonight we're looking at presenting to you a budget that's $236,250. Similarly, Kevin's budget, or the technology budget, was initially at $372,385. And again, knowing that we have to be mindful of budgets and looking at what we could put off without risk, we reduced that to $330,685. So at this point in time, what I'll present to the board tonight for potential approval is $566,935. But let me get into the particulars. What does that look like? What's in there? Before we get into that, though, I want to draw your attention to our strategic plan. And currently, a lot of the technology items that you'll hear me reference tonight in the capital plan are clearly outlined on the vision document. We're going to talk tonight about STEAM and Makerspace. How do we keep those programs going? We're going to talk about the need to make sure that we maximize our technology resources and supports. So you'll see some of the infrastructure as part of our presentation. And then also meaningful technology integration. And I think you saw that in some of the comments from Thought Exchange about folks understanding the need for our Chromebooks and that students are using them routinely. It's part of their daily life here at all schools. So this is the technology draft capital proposal. And I also wanted the board to see what has been removed so they can see some of the thoughtful decision making that we've already put into this budget. So at the very top, you'll see the PHS displays part 2. This year, we were able to fund part 1. The part 2, we decided to postpone a year because of such a tight budget year last year. That was part of our reductions from last year. But the displays that have not yet been replaced are 11 years old. And many of them have parts that if they do fail, we might not be able to get the parts. So there's pretty much not a teacher in this high school that wouldn't be using their boards every day. That's how they display some of the work in the class, some of the homework assignments. They can run a movie off of it. It's an integral part of the classroom. Chromebooks for grades 6, 9, and 10. And you'll notice, too, that Chromebook replacements now are always going to be 6, 9, 10, because what happens is a 6th grader, when this goes through, a 6th grader will get a brand new Chromebook in the fall, as will a 9th grader and a 10th grader, and then they carry those Chromebooks with them for 3 to 4 years. So every year you're going to see the same grade level, but it's because we're restarting it at that grade level.
After this year, no 10th grade, go to elementary,
Thank you, Kevin.
so elementary is 6.
Gotcha. So the prices of Chromebook unfortunately went up a little bit, or are projected to go up a little bit next year, in part due to the incoming tariffs. So that line item is a bit higher than what you would have seen when we projected out from last year. Chromebook cases are also in the budget because we want to protect our investment, and the Chromebook cases that we have found that are most useful, particularly at the middle school level where kids are bringing them home, but they're still not 100% responsible sometimes. They're very durable, and they can withstand, not a lot, but a decent amount of mishandling. And then we do recommend replacing office desktops at Linden in the middle school. Those are 7 years old, and they are past their recommended useful life. As I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to go into more detail on a subsequent slide, we are at the point now where we're starting to rethink whether we should have computer labs at our elementary schools. Because of the fact that our classrooms have one-to-one devices, grades 3, 4, 5, and at the younger levels they have iPad access or classroom set access, we really don't think there is a need to continue on with computer labs. However, the computer labs are typically housed in our libraries, and that is where we do our makerspace. And that's one of the things that we got recognized by that national publication, District Administrator, where they were impressed by our STEAM and innovative practices that relate to our vision statement. That was exactly why we got that award. So we feel that we want to redirect some of those monies, not all. This is much cheaper than outfitting 2 schools with a computer lab, but we would like to allocate those monies toward making sure our makerspace and our STEAM continue to move forward and those supplies are replenished. And that also is a precursor to our robotics program. Technician laptops, they are getting old, and our technicians serve the entire town, so those are in need of replacement. The security camera server, which serves all schools, needs to be updated, and that's something that you'll see in a moment, though, that we've put into a grant, so I'll explain that momentarily. And then kindergarten iPads, that's 5 iPads per classroom district-wide, and special ed iPads. Many of our students have an IEP that says this child has to have an iPad in order to communicate, so that iPad absolutely has to be running and in good condition. We did take a few things out that were originally in there. After speaking with Todd Helming today, and the board did tour the auditorium last week as part of the facility subcommittee, he has prioritized the control panel for the STEAM lab. So I'm going to show you where that is going to be referenced in the STEAM hardware line, but I'm going to explain what's in there. So we took out some lighting and the MSPN computer, but we put in a control panel. I'll explain that in a minute. We postponed a computer lab. The high school still does need to have some computer labs because they're highly specialized. They run various platforms that help our technology department with CAD and other things that are unique to high school, so we do have to maintain a few computer labs here, but we're recommending we postpone that 1 more year to see if we can't look at some grant funding, or sometimes adult ed can collaborate with us, and some of those computers can be paid for by adult ed. So we postponed that pending more investigation. We originally thought about pulling out the Wheeler iPads and paying for them out of the Wheeler building budget, but after conferring with the town manager, he thought it was better to leave it in the capital, because once it's in the project, it's not a state reimbursed item, then we'd end up paying interest on that over X amount of years. So from a financial standpoint, it's better to be in the capital. On the next slide, we've broken out what are some of those components of the STEAM and STEM lab, because that's a relatively new item. So Deb Peichel, our instructional leader for library information, has broken it out that each elementary school, in order to move their maker spaces forward, would need all the items listed in that lower table. Apple iPads, which give the kids access to apps that do unique things. Coding devices. Coding is, when I talk to people who are working in a manufacturing field, and I've visited many of our companies here in Plainville or right in Farmington, they tell me the kids need to know how to code. If any type of job in a manufacturing company or an advanced computer technology studies, they have to know how to code. So we start very young. I saw kids the other day in elementary school, 2nd grade, learning how to code.
We have to we want to do a preliminary work on our robotics, so we're going to get some robotic kits for the elementary, and virtual reality. That allows kids to see some things that we can't provide for them in school, like a field trip to, Europe, all by wearing goggles. So those items would be across all 3 elementary schools, and it would be $8,000 per school. And now back to the top, when we spoke with Todd Helming today, he felt the most important, because there was other items we wanted to kind of reduce a little bit. He said the most important item there is the house lighting control system. What he talked to us about on last week was that the lighting system at the middle school is 25 plus years old. The lighting system itself is 25 years old. Some of the lights are 50 years old. And if any of these break, it could render the auditorium useless, because you can't run a show or an event without proper lighting. The other advantage to the house lighting control system is that we can keep better control over that, because a lot of community folks use our system, and at least once a month it's leased out to a community organization, and sometimes they don't know how to use it, and on occasion there's been some damage. So this would allow us to have better controls. We could preset it, and then it would be hard for any things to go wrong. So that's Todd, though he would like all of these things, the lighting updates and the MSPN computer. We wanted to focus in on the lighting control system. And then there's some, besides what I mentioned for elementary, there is the MSP STEAM lab needs a few updates, though you can see quite a bit less because we did the grant funding or the endowment funding of that lab about 1.5 years ago. So all these together make up that line in the budget for STEAM. All right, and on the next slide, just kind of a big picture. This is our plan going out, and I'm not going to get into a lot of detail because this is in subsequent years, but I think it's important for the board to know that we do have a thoughtful plan. It takes into account the replacement of all these items, and when I was talking to Kevin earlier today, some districts don't do this. They either try to get it all done at once, so then they're asking the community to approve a $2 million capital computer fund, and often that does not work. And other districts ask for quite a bit more than this, but I think that thanks to Kevin and the work he's done, we've gotten to the point where we can try to get a predictable amount every year for the board to consider, because we realize we can't ask our community to come up with, to look at $2 million, but if we break it into manageable parts, being mindful of the aging of all these devices, that we can continue to make sure that we move this forward and also maintain the type of integration that we've come to really rely on in getting our kids ready for the world and beyond. I mean, I think it's, as someone that teaches at the graduate level, everything at the college level now is online. I teach courses where I've never physically corrected a paper. It's all Google Docs, I correct it there. So this is the kind of thing that's getting the children ready for college, because they're going to have mostly everything online in college. So anyway, we'll obviously get into the details of those subsequent years, but you can see that every year there'll be a Chromebook line, every year there'll be a Makerspace and Steam hardware line, and then servers and other things that that we collaborate with the town on, because a lot of our integration is merged now. So when it comes to technology. All right, so on the next slide is our capital plan for facilities. And this has been, quite a bit reduced since we first looked at it about a month ago. Mr. Bussell proposed some landscape improvements to Tafalon. When Tafalon was designed, it was designed with really pretty landscaping. However, a lot of that needs tremendous maintenance, and we're finding that it's just too much for the town to do. So he's suggesting that we get some more permanent things like stone, and upon conversations with Manager Lee, he suggested, well, if the town does the labor, can we bring that item down? So we did reduce this by about $8,000 from the first line, the first time we proposed it. He mentioned, or Mr. Bussell mentioned, that the Tafalon chiller has had some problems. Apparently, that when it was first installed, they made a few mistakes, which have some subsequent problems down the road. So that needs to be reconfigured.
We also have talked about many times in our budget the repointing of the exterior of this high school, the part facing the fields. Literally, there are bricks that are falling off. This was stuff that was not done during the renovation about 8 years ago, so each year Mr. Bustle's put that forward. I asked him to say, which one of these is most crucial? And he indicated this one is because if debris falls off the school, it could potentially injure somebody. Some of the other components are so far removed from where people would be walking, we've got a little more time, but this he feels could be, at some point, could lead to an injury. The update head end AC with 2 larger units, what that means in English is we have to keep our computers cool. And this is a split item between us and the town because where we keep our computer hub here at the high school actually benefits the entire town. So we're recommending that we do half and the town does half on that. Automate the field lighting. We had originally hoped to do that out of the initial turf fund endowment, but when we had some of the trouble with the track, we could not get that finished. So if we automate the field lighting, it's going to save money on electricity on the road because it allows us to pre-program the lights so that, inevitably when we lease the fields to other folks, sometimes the lights get left on or the keys get lost to the lights or there's other issues. This will allow Mr. Bustle or one of his staff to turn the lights off by a computerized program. And the board has heard me talk about and looking at redesigning the front entryway to the high school. It's the new front entryway, which is further down toward the middle of the school, is not as secure as some of our other schools, and we're looking to redesign that so that people would come into the office. When they come into the door, they'd be directed to the main office, so they have to be vetted by someone right at the office. Now, at the former main entrance, when you came in and you were let into the school, you were sort of right there in the hallway, and that is still the case. It's not the most secure way to do it, but it is currently what we have. So we'd like to look at that. That is also in a grant, and I'll explain what we're thinking about now with the grant potential. And toward the bottom of that budget page is the purchase of additional cleaning equipment. That was zeroed out from last year's budget, and because we want to maintain our buildings, we need to replenish the cleaning equipment. And also additional cameras and access improvements for security. That also will be in the grant, and I'll explain that again on the next slide. I did want to bring to the board's attention that we have a lot of worries about the middle school. We're on the next slide now. That because it's, due for a renovation in about 3 to 4 years, we've tried to postpone and continue to postpone many items. So I wanted the board just to look at the aggregate list here of items that we have postponed thoughtfully, purposefully, fingers crossed, hoping that they will continue to be sustained until we can look at a renovation project. So these items on their own, and you can see that's refinish the gym floors, big ticket items, replace student lockers, rekey the whole building. They've got cooling towers, roof issues. So those items all add up to about $5.5 million. We've held off on the roofing, though that would be a largely reimbursable project because the minute you replace the roof, when you replace other things down the road, like the cooling towers, you'd be digging into a brand new roof, and that's not advisable. So Mr. Bustles, as the board may recall, purchased like an agreement where we get maintenance every year, which is kind of, kept that roof moving along. But there are a lot of updates that need to happen, and besides this list, this is not an all-inclusive list, it's just some of the key items. Some of the building needs to be brought up to code for ADA issues. So again, these are being put on hold. We're hoping they continue to, work the way they should with their talented facility staff. And once the building reaches the age of 30, it would be eligible for a renovation project. So that's kind of where we're thinking on that. Now, on the next slide, I've been referencing a security grant. About a week ago, Mr. LePage, Mr. Adlerstein, and Mr. Ross, Mr. Bustle collaborated on a security grant. And I'm going to kind of take this left-hand side chart and kind of work upwards from you. So the grant we've applied for is for $242,657. Right now, based on the reimbursement rates of that grant, we'd be eligible to get about $165,000 from the state, because it's also based on what you've already spent money on as well as what you're projecting to spend money on. So you don't get all the money, you have to chip in some, the board or the town has to chip in some money as well. So we've already spent $64,000, and we're supposed to meet the threshold for this grant, we should be spending $77,000. So going forward, to get that full reimbursement, we would need to dedicate about $12,000 in our capital. So here's the good news, and I know this is a bit confusing, but if we are able to get the full funding for that grant, which essentially is 68% of what we applied for, or $165,000, then about $113,000 would be available to be removed from the capital. So most of those fall on the facilities end, except from the server. So long story short, we've talked to the town manager about this, and he advises leave it in the capital for now, and hopefully we will get some word on that grant. January's optimistic, February's fairly likely. So we're hoping it's a well-written grant, a lot of thought went into it. If that comes to fruition, then we can look at our capital and reduce it by over $100,000. So that's a hopeful and optimistically, hopefully we will get that. Just a word of caution though, pretty much every district in the state applied. But of course ours is the best written one. All right, and there's our vision document. Hopefully the board saw how some of the, certainly the technology budget aligns very directly to this, but frankly, we can't do a lot of these items unless we have a real solid facility to teach our children in. So I'm going to start a little bit on the board budget. Any questions before I transition to the budget? Yes.
I was just wondering, when will we know about the results of the grant? When is there a certain?
We're hoping to hear sometime in February, based on when they announced it last year. They've been offering these grants every year. Last year we didn't get it because we found out, of course, after we applied that they were only awarding it to districts that never gotten security grant money before, and we had. So, but now everyone's gotten some money. We're back in the pool with everybody else. We think we'll hear by February, but nothing written in stone, but that's what we think.
Right, okay.
Certainly before the all-day budget vote, so that's encouraging. I think we'll definitely know before this budget is turned over to the town for approval in April. So I think we definitely, if we're going to get any money, we should know about it well in advance of those decision-making times. But I'll certainly keep the board fully abreast of any results I get. Any other questions about the capital?
I have a question. For the middle school, I believe it was said the other night in the meeting that anything that we get now can be used and saved for throughout the renovation.
You're exactly right, and thank you for mentioning that. But we did ask Mr. Helming, you know, because we anticipate a renovation project down the road, would installing any of these things now only lead for them to be ruined when the building is tinkered with? And he said, no, these items are not going to get in the way of that, so there's no reason to hesitate. And he also made a very good point. Most of these items, such as lighting, the control panel, are not reimbursable. So there's really no incentive to wait because it's not something that's going to be reimbursed, and likely it's going to go up in price. The longer we wait, as with anything else, the price goes up. So thank you for bringing that up.
And one other question, and these items are used for teaching, correct?
We do. We use the auditorium every day. It's teaching space for Mr. Helming, and so we do assemblies in there. We do different types of programs in there. So it's used, I don't know, Mr. Guarino, probably every period or close to it.
The auditorium? Mm-hmm. Not every period, but used on a weekly basis. And yeah, the band uses it, the chorus uses it, the music classes use it. The teachers use it anytime they do performances that the kids do in class.
So it's like instructional space. It's not strictly for productions or plays. It's absolutely used all the time. All right. Any other comments? Okay. I'm going to briefly kick off our budget discussion, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Adlerstein. As I mentioned, and I've mentioned this a few times as we started to dive into the budget process, that here are some of the main drivers, as always, of the budget for next year. And although we don't have a sense yet of what the percentage increase will be, these are some of the key issues that we're going to have to look at as we go into our budget season. The biggest driver right now is our teacher line. We did enter into a one-year contract with the teachers to extend their contract by 1 year. That was done this past spring, or actually earlier than that, winter, when the teachers, we had asked the teachers to make a concession about the new health insurance plan, and in order to do that, they were given an extension on their contract. Now, they didn't get a 3.98% raise. However, that includes step increases as well as the percentage of raises. And again, as we go into now this summer or this spring, we'll begin teacher negotiations, and certainly that nice raise that they were given this year will be taken into account as we look out for 3 years. But again, we needed to get the teachers union to sign on to the new health insurance because the deadline was July 1. We needed to get that passed by July 1 so that the health co-payments didn't have to be handed out, or paid out rather. The rest of these are just part of the projected raises for each of these bargaining units. So the paratutor union is due for a 3.69% increase. They had a pretty good increase because they were extraordinarily underpaid previously. The administrator increase is quite low because administrators will have a step freeze this year. So any teacher or any administrator rather who's not on top step has a step freeze. Transportation should be about a 2.9. Non-bargaining, these are folks that are on individual contracts and are part of a bargaining unit, about 2.5%. The custodians and office professionals will be undergoing negotiations this year. We expect that to be about a 2.5% increase. We do think we need to increase our sub-line. Every year it seems to be underfunded, so Mr. Adlerstein's recommending we go up by about 100%. And then nurses, although they're not a bargaining unit, we do revise their contract every 3 years, so they'll be up for a revision this year. You'll note that health insurance is not up there yet. We still have a lot of digging to do on that. We've got to look at not only the current costs, but also the dental costs, so we didn't feel comfortable putting a line item up there. As we get further into the budget process, you'll certainly hear more about health insurance, we're hoping. And certainly we're not going to see the kind of increase we saw last year. That was an anomaly, and that certainly is something that we hope to never see again. And I think the thoughtful planning on going onto the state plan will help that. And now I'd like to turn the podium over to Mr. Adlerstein. Would you like my laptop there, or are you just going to use the board? Okay.
So I think Dr. Brummett set me up a little bit. She got very busy today. She was going to send an email to administrators to let them know that we were going to start a soft budget freeze this year. We're going to start a soft budget freeze this year. And so what that means is we're going to just put a little extra scrutiny behind purchase orders as they come in. Purchase orders that are already open, and likely will postpone some spending, similar to what we did last year. And the reason is our special education department has done an excellent job keeping students in district, but because of that, we've had higher than budgeted paraprofessional costs. In addition, the substitute line that you just saw for next year is equally over budget this year. And lastly, we had a budget freeze last year, and that caused us to postpone some maintenance costs that now we're trying to catch up this year. So with all that, we looked at it, and we believe that the prudent thing to do is to put some extra scrutiny behind our spending from now to the end of the year. Next, Kevin. So just talked about the budget freeze last year. This is the cause of the budget freeze last year. Our school district is largely funded by the state. It's the biggest state grant. It's called the ECS grant, Education Cost Share Grant. And our budget, our $37 million budget is funded by the numbers you see up here from the state, and the rest is largely funded through local property tax. Up until 2016, our ECS grant went up almost every year for decades. And then in 2016, we saw a different trend. We saw reductions in that ECS grant. And from 2016 to 2018, we went from $10.4 million of funding from the state to $8.9 million of funding, so a reduction of $1.5 million. This didn't all come to the district. A lot of it was dealt with by the town, and but enough of it came to the district that we did some mid-year adjustments, saved $220,000. Actually, when the dust settled, we ended up reducing our budget by $300,000. So the question is, what does this look like going forward? And Kevin, next slide. If the state sticks to what they say, it's good news. What you see on this slide is a phase-in from the $10.3 million that you saw on the last slide that's in this budget up to $12.7 million. And this is based on a new formula that the state is using to calculate ECS grant. It's largely a reapportionment between districts. Some districts have the opposite of this, and their grants are going down. But if the state sticks to this, we look to see a $260,000 ECS grant increase year in, year out for the next 10 years. Will that happen? The state doesn't have a great track record of sticking to this stuff, but if they do, I mean, at least we are looking at a favorable scenario right now. Next. So that leads us into the budget schedule, and what you see at the top of this slide is what we've already done. The stuff in the yellow has already been done, and that's largely with the administrators. The stuff at the bottom is what's yet to come, that hopefully is on your calendars. December 10th is the first white lines. I hope you have on your calendars January 22nd, 23rd, and 30th. Those are the 3 budget workshops, followed by February 11th, where we plan to vote on the budget and pass it on to the town, and then you see the rest of the schedule. Let me just take a little bit of time to talk about what's already been done, Kevin. So this is, we worked, kind of like our teachers work with our students, our administration worked together and shared electronic documents. And it was really important because if Matt's budgeting for the middle school, well, there's also curriculum and instruction, special services, athletics and clubs, safety issues, folks responsible for that go across his school. And so because we're all working in the same documents, Rosa and Tawana and Vicki and Leanne, Chris Farrell, the central office administrators all got to look at, kick the tires, collaborate on Matt's budget, the elementary school's budget, the high school budget. And we believe that we have a better budget because of that approach, better coherence in our budget. Next slide. This is a busy slide, but this is the framework we followed. So if you follow the big rectangles, we started with a workshop on September 27th, very high level. And the question we posed on September 27th was, if you were starting from scratch, what would you build in and what would you leave out? So pretty much a clean sheet of paper question, and did that interactively. After that start, asked all the administrators to continue the work together. We actually met, Maureen, Steve, and I, with each of the administrators on their high-level budgets, what they would leave in, what they could leave out, how it cohered with the rest of the district. Got back together on October 25th and started bringing it together, focused on the top priorities. From there, that's when we went into our detailed budget exercise. And that brings us to right now. Each of the administrators has done a detailed budget. It's been done within shared documents, so looked at from a number of perspectives by a number of eyes. We're at the point now where we'll roll it together and start looking at it, central office, preparing something to bring to you, and the dates of those workshops. And what's next, Kevin? Is that it? Yeah, I think that's it. Questions? Thank you.
Oh, can I just ask a quick question? Are we looking at any other grants that might affect this budget?
Reductions in grants?
No, any grants that we're applying for or anything like that?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to get a new grant last year, Title IV grant, which we hadn't had before. It was increased significantly this year from 5,000 to,
No, it was about 10,000, it's 47,500, I believe, this year. I submitted that grant.
And that's for
we're always
school
looking for
climate
grant
issues?
opportunities, and I think that's an example of the latest increase in
Yeah, that's
grant.
probably, and then the open choice academic and social grant may go up. It's been trending back upwards again. But the board will clearly see any grant we know about heading into the budget. They'll see that as an offset. We'll explain that. Any other grants, I'm not aware of any. Hopefully the security grant. But everything else,
Central academic support grant for choice as well.
yeah, we just mentioned that could go up as some of these grants that have been cut over the past 2 or 3 years of very bad budgets are starting to creep back up again, which is positive. But we'll keep the board fully informed about that. And also, just to put an exclamation point on what Sam mentioned, you know, I attend a lot of state meetings and committees that I belong to, and there's been no indication that there's any ECS grant cuts coming down the line. None whatsoever. Now, could we be surprised? Of course. But last year, you know, we certainly were getting the clouds on the horizon for quite a number of months when we finally got the really bad news of the huge cut we got last year, but I'm not hearing that at all this year. So I'm hoping that the projection that Sam showed the board tonight will hold up.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that concludes my report for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to the board subcommittee reports. We have Allie and Madeline.
All right, so on November 21st, students from all grades met in the auditorium to go over our new ALICE lockdown procedures with our student resource officer. That was just updating our lockdown procedures, went over the acronym ALICE, and part of the new procedure was learning that it was okay to evacuate the building if the part of the building that you're located in an emergency is clear of an intruder. Tomorrow, the students will be participating in ASVAB testing if they chose. This provides students with an opportunity to discover which occupations they may do the best in the future. Friday is Pajama Day at PHS to raise money for CCMC's Center for Cancer and Blood Disorders. Fundraisers. The senior class will be running its annual gift wrapping fundraiser on the 13th, the 17th, and the 18th here in the cafeteria. And we encourage the community to bring their gifts to be wrapped for $2 a piece. Band and chorus will have their winter concert next Wednesday, the 19th. And students will be off on holiday recess from the 22nd to the 1st of the new year.
It's an exciting time for winter sports. Most sports are opening their season this week. The basketball team kicked off their season together this past Friday at their game and giveaway contest. Teams were collecting toys for kids in need. And tonight, the girls team plays their first game at home against Hull. And the boys team will play their first official game away at Wolcott Tech on Thursday at 6:45. The wrestling team will travel to Newington on Wednesday for its first match at 6. And the boys swim and dive team will have its first home meet next Tuesday, the 18th at 4 p.m.
Any questions for them? Okay, thank you. Next, we have the facilities subcommittee report. Mrs. Tyrell?
So the facilities subcommittee did meet last week at the middle school, as was mentioned, and there were some concerns in the lighting system in the auditorium that, kind of brought about the change in the plan. We did discuss even further detail the capital budget proposal that we are looking to approve this evening.
Okay, thank you. The policy subcommittee report, Mrs. Tyrell?
Did not meet this month.
Thank you. The advocacy update? Oh, did I miss? Oh, finance subcommittee. I missed you.
Nothing to report.
Okay. The I can't say that word.
There's nothing to report on it, so fortunately.
There's no update? Is that what you said? Okay. Turf committee report?
The turf committee has not met.
Okay. And the Plainville High School report, Mr. White.
Yes, the last PAC meeting was November 14th. At that time, they had reported a actually a treasury balance of $2,651.77. They will have enough money to, again, to do their scholarships and also to support again the Super Senior event in May. They do have some other fundraisers that are going. They're still doing their foam #1 fingers at $5 each, also umbrellas. And they're also working on a process to go back and contact alumni to see what they can do to get some additional scholarship support. The next meeting of the PAC is going to be January 9th at 7 p.m.
Okay,
in the media center.
thank you. Taflon Elementary School, Mrs. Gonzalez.
So Taflon, we had the November 30th, we had our holiday fair. It was a wonderful time. And thanks to all who donated and volunteered to make this event a great success. Families also had curl up and read on November 30th with the children. And December 19th, Taflon's going to be having their select choir will be going on a holiday caroling field trip. Grade 5 is going to be going to Apple Rehab here in Plainville, and the Senior Center, 10:45 on December 19th at the Senior Center and 10 a.m. at Apple Rehab. Grade 3 will be going to the Jerome Home and Arbor Rose in New Britain. They'll be at Jerome Home at 1 o'clock and 1:30 for Arbor Rose. So that'll be a fun time for the select choir. And our next PTO meeting will be on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Linden, Mrs. Wells?
Yes, I went to my first PTO meeting at Linden this past November 14th. The parents spent a lot of time brainstorming on fundraising ideas for the future. They didn't come up with anything specific yet. Principal Issue commented on businesses in town that are very helpful with donations, so I wanted to publicize those businesses. It's Zorella's and Lowe's and Nazzo's, so that the public can support those businesses that support us. Big Y, not so much, something to note. And I also was just very impressed, just when they come on the parents that were there, spent a lot of time talking about, there's a holiday store coming up in the end of December before the Christmas break, and they were really concerned about making sure that every child was able to participate and really making sure that the teachers were aware of what they could do to make sure that, you know, it didn't matter whether the kids had money with them on that day, make sure they went down to the holiday store and they could participate, and I was impressed with that. It's a small group of parents, but they get stuff done, so I was happy to see that.
Okay, thank you. And the middle school, Mrs. St. Lawrence?
Yep, we met on November 13th. Let's see, we had a nice bingo event on Wednesday, November 14th, and we collected food for the Plainville Food Pantry, and Mr. Guarino called the bingo numbers, and the kids and families have so much fun. Let's see, we sold gift cards, and I'm not sure how that went. We'll talk about that at our meeting tomorrow. And we also had a Five Below fundraiser, started on November 25th to December 2nd, and we'll find out more about that tomorrow. Our next meeting is tomorrow at 7 p.m.
Okay, thank you. And I will do the Wheeler Elementary. They had their third annual Grandparents Grand Guest Day, where over 150 guests attended. During this time, grandparents and grand guests had an opportunity to buy books and/or sit in the cafe with their child and have coffee and cookies. For all 3 days, the book fair was open during parent conferences. It generated over $8,000 in revenue that converts into books monies through Scholastic for Wheeler School. Last Friday evening, the PTO held its Winterfest, where families come to Wheeler to celebrate the holidays. Santa is there, gingerbread houses, contest, raffles, and plenty of food. Fun was had by all, and the next meeting is January 16th. Mrs. Tyrell, Craig Council?
Before I talk about Craig Council, I neglected to mention that we do have a facilities meeting at Wheeler on, I want to say the 16th or the 18th.
It's Tuesday, yeah.
So that's probably the 16th.
Yeah, I think it's the 18th.
Maybe the 18th, yeah. Okay, that would be right. I couldn't remember which one of those. Okay. So we are going to have a tour there.
And we're certainly, everyone's welcome to come tour the school with us to see the progress. I think everyone's going to be impressed.
So I was not able to attend the most recent Crick Council meeting. However, I did just want to follow up on the resolution that I kind of touched upon last month. There's been a little bit of a change in the format with that, and it's going to be something that won't come to individual boards in the region. It will probably be something that the Crick Council itself will be looking to approve. So just so you know, the board won't be looking at having to approve that resolution.
Okay, thank you. The chairperson's report, I just want to say we had a very nice tree lighting last Thursday. I want to thank the choir and the band. Their performances were great. It was a little cold out, but it was well worth it. And thank you to the fire department for putting it on and bringing Santa. And I just want to wish everyone happy holidays and happy new year. Okay. New business. Board open forum. Does anyone have anything to say?
I just wanted to congratulate the soccer team again, and for a wonderful job, and they should really be proud of themselves. So I just want to congratulate them again, and just wish everybody a wonderful holiday.
Anyone else?
Several of us attended the CABE conference in November, and there was a little bit of a different twist in that we had staff members there with us, which was actually really interesting. And we sat together and talked about some of the things that people were witnessing and had gone to. So it was really interesting. And the theme really was social emotional learning. And so there were some good sessions on that. So I think that helps us as board members to kind of get a better idea of what that really means. So I'm interested in the fact that Mr. Brackett will be coming here in March. And I think that's all I had to say. So wish everybody a nice holiday.
Anyone else?
Okay, I don't want to be a Grinch.
I was waiting for you, Foster.
But yeah, a happy holiday, but also I would hope that we would have an opportunity to meet with Dr. Brackett again at that, and I would encourage, especially those of you who are not able to be at the CABE conference, that is, I think, a very critical part of where education and teaching and learning is going, and I think it's very positive that he will be here.
Okay.
It's this time of year, so Merry Christmas.
Anyone else? Okay, and Sam, you don't have a report, right, first? No. Okay. Now we're up to approving the budget calendar. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the 2019-2020 budget calendar.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And next, can I get a motion to approve the capital budget plan?
Motion to approve the capital budget plan for 2019-2020.
Second the motion.
Okay. I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to add one thing. I'm really happy to see that $13,000 was added in, both with the makerspace and everything, to replace that particular lighting situation at the middle school, because that is a critical situation, and it's been explained to me that if any one of those switches that are located at each of the entrances to that were to fail, the entire system would fail. If that were to happen while that room was occupied, it could put that whole auditorium, whoever in there, in complete darkness. And because the power was still on, it was just a failure, the emergency lights may not go on. And I think since we now have knowledge that this is something that could happen, if that did happen, and we had not faced it, we could have some liability exposure. So I think it's an excellent addition, and in addition to Makerspace, which is just one of my personal favorites, I really think that starts at the young age, get kids going on STEM, it's right. So I'm really happy to see that.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll just say that we had a tour the other night and they shut off the lights, so it is absolutely pitch black when they, if it were to fail, you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And I believe that they actually teach the kids with the control panel too. They come in there and they learn how to use
Yes,
it. So
they
it's also educational. Okay.
I've had the pleasure of actually working that port and
Did you break it?
kids.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And now can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion for the consent agenda.
Second?
Okay, I have a first and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Okay. And now we will do a new section, review of the meeting. So if anyone has any comments or suggestions on the board for how the meeting went, how anything we should change? Thank you. No one? Okay.
I think it went well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think.
I think you did a great job.
Yeah, I do want to thank Nicole.
We
Stepped
stuck,
in.
we stuck to things, and it's a relatively quick and productive meeting.
I do my best. Quick and productive. Okay. All right. And now can I get a motion to go into executive session?
I would move that we go into the executive session, and that we invite the superintendent.
Second. Anyone? Do we need to second that?
For pending litigation discussion.
And we'll be using the office conference room that we've used in previous, so adjourn over there.